everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. We are here today to talk about Disney Plus and more of our hidden gems. This is our fourth, I believe, for Disney Plus that we've done, and just sharing some of the not as obvious, not The Mandalorian and stuff like that. So things that are really great on the service. And so we're excited to talk about that today. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan Cam is here.
I'll be right back. I have to change up my list a little bit. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm happy to be here, Rachel. It's always a pleasure to do a podcast with you in any form, really. So I've been looking forward to doing this as I do every week.
Well, it's been really fun so far. So you all listening will have to let us know what some of your favorite hidden gems are and what you think of our picks.
You know what I'd love to do one day?
What?
I'd love for people to send in their hidden gems on Disney Plus and we could read them off.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. Let us know. And that's for the next week's episode. We will read off your hidden gem picks. That would be great. You can tell us on Twitter or in the comment section. So, all right, let's dive into it. Ryan, what is your first pick?
So my first pick, firstly, these are all going to be from the 2000s. This is from the first decade of the new millennium. My first pick, I teased this in, I want to say, the first or second episode of this series, but I am going to do a full-fledged discussion on it right here. It is Atlantis, the Lost Empire. Similar to Treasure Planet, Atlantis kind of got caught up in that post-Renaissance period with Disney because Disney had just gotten off the biggest hot streak of their tenure. And so anything after that streak is going to be automatically like knocked down a peg. But I've always enjoyed Atlantis personally. It's got great animation. It's got a really, really fun premise. And it's got a pretty good cast, too. It's got Michael J. Fox, who is primarily known for the Back to the Future stuff. But if you want to see him in something outside of that, then Atlantis will definitely hook you up. And it's got the late Leonard Nimoy in there as well. May he rest in peace. And it's also got James Garner, who had a legendary film career. And it's also... a bit of a side note, one of my favorite teaser posters as well. It's just a stormy background with the A of Atlantis on there, and it's got the quote from Plato that said that, and in one day and one night, Atlantis sank to the bottom of the sea. That's a very rough paraphrase, but I'm sure everyone will get my point. But Atlantis certainly deserves a lot more praise than it's gotten. It's not hated as far as I know, but similar to Treasure Planet, it got caught up in that post-Renaissance time, and after Disney had just done Lion King and just crushed the animation game for literally years, Atlantis just got a raw deal.
Yeah. We actually just reviewed this on Talking Disney 2 episodes ago. So, me and Stanford. So, if you want to hear our views on it, I'll put a link down in the description. People can listen to that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot going for it. It's not perfect, but I love the animation. I think it's so beautiful. And there's just a nice spirit of adventure about it, which is a lot of fun.
I will dock points that the metal scorpion looks really fake, but minus that, the animation does look good.
Yeah, really nice. And I think it has definitely a feel of anime and Studio Ghibli influence on the studio, especially Castle in the Sky. I think you can really see even just the colors are almost the same in there. And both movies have like the same color of blue in the magical power stuff. But yeah, I think that it's a really interesting entry in the Disney canon for sure. And people should check it out. So that's a good pick. My first pick is called The Straight Story. And I'm not sure if this was originally Disney or if this is a Fox film or what happened with it. But
if my Disney knowledge is correct, then it is a Disney joint.
Okay. So it doesn't feel like a Disney film to me. But
This was
it's
directed by David Lynch, correct?
yes, yes. That's part of the reason why it probably doesn't feel like a Disney film in a lot of ways, but it's really good. It stars Richard Farnsworth, who is such a lovely actor. A lot of people, at least a lot of my friends would know him as Matthew Cuthbert in Anne of Green Gables. And he was so great in that. And he's just a lovely actor. And he basically plays this man who finds out that his brother is sick, had a stroke, and he wants to visit his brother and mend their relationship, but he doesn't know how to drive. He doesn't drive, and he doesn't have a license. And so he decides to drive his tractor all the way from like Iowa to Wisconsin or something like that. And it's just such a sweet, lovely little movie that it does a really good job of developing particularly his character as just a very unique character. Like he's not really cliched. He's not like other people that you've seen in movies. He's just a unique human, and it also it looks beautiful. It's sort of it flies in the face of sort of most small town kind of movies or homespun American kind of movies, and because it has a little bit of rawness to it, even though it is sweet, but it's just very honest. It's a very honest movie, and I think people will really like it if they give it a chance.
Yeah, hearing you describe this movie, I'm thinking to myself, this is from the director of Eraserhead.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's
and
G
and the
rated, so
and the
but
creator of
still,
Twin Peaks.
yeah, yeah,
And the
and
director of Dune.
yeah, and he was nominated for an Oscar for the movie. I mean, it's a really great performance and a really sweet little movie. But yeah, it has you can tell that it's David Lynch, even in all its G-ratedness. So I think to me it really fits the definition of a hidden gem that people wouldn't have known about or would have seen. Have you seen it?
And no, I've heard about it though. It's David Lynch is one of those directors that I've only seen one of his movies, The Elephant Man, which I
Mm-hmm.
did enjoy. But he's one of those directors that I've always heard about, but I've never like gone out of my way to watch any of his stuff other than The Elephant Man. I've got
Yeah.
Twin Peaks in my Netflix list, and now that I'm hearing you talk about the straight story, I figured, you know what? I think I might as well give this guy a shot because this sounds like a good entryway to get into
Yeah.
David Lynch, and then get into Eraserhead and have your mind just like blown.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I'm with you. I actually I haven't seen most of his, famous R-rated films. But I have seen this, and I have seen Elephant Man as well. So we're kind of in the same boat there. But I know enough kind of about uh, his um his style to kind of see. What do you have next on your list?
So my next choice is from filmmaker, and I want to get his name correct. Filmmaker Louis Schwartzberg. It is America's Heart and Soul. Uh,
Oh.
this this was a first time watch for me. I watched it for this list because it's one of those movies that I had always heard about and I had always seen the trailer for on either my Lilo and Stitch VHS or my Treasure Planet VHS. I can't remember which one, but I'm sure it's one of those. It came out in 2004, so it's around that same time. But this is a movie essentially about filmmaker Louis Schwartzberg, who would travel all around the U.S. and just meet people and talk to people and learn about their stories. And I find people fascinating, and so he just captured their unique stories. I remember this one gentleman who lived, I want to say, in the Gulf Coast of Alabama, whose family had lived on that piece of property for about 250 years. And I did the math. If this movie were to be made let's say 2003, late 2002, they would have moved onto that land in 1753, like when the US wasn't even formed yet. It wasn't even a country. It was a British colony. But side road. America's Heart and Soul is it's a simple story about simple Americans living their lives. And there's something about that I just really liked.
Huh, that sounds really cute. I've never heard of that before.
It was one of those things, like I said, where I would always see the trailer for on one of my old VHSs, and I just never went out of my way to see it until now.
So America's Heart and Soul, you said?
Yes.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that sounds really good. I'll definitely have to check that out. All right, so my second choice is called Frankenweenie, and I guess people know about this movie, just particularly if you're a big Tim Burton fan. But I think that it also kind of got lost in a way too. I feel like it's without a doubt the best thing Tim Burton has made since the 90s, I think. I mean, I wish that he would stay in the animation lane as opposed to his live action films have been almost universally disappointing to me over the last 20 years. And I think that he is so much better when he is telling his own stories versus when he's adapting other people's stories. And that's basically what he has been doing for the last 20 years. Whether it's his Planet of the Apes, his Alice in Wonderland, his that Miss Peregrine's, that was an adaptation. The list goes on and on. And
I honestly forgot Miss Peregrine's was even a thing.
it was awful. I hated it. And Dark Shadows adaptation. I mean, and it's so rare that we actually get his own stories with his own imagination. And this Frankenweenie is literally based on his own story, his own short subject that he did when in the 80s. He did an animated short, Frankenweenie, and then he expanded it into this feature film. And I just think I really love the animation. I think it's so cool the way it all looks black and white. And I really like the fact that if I was a parent, I would want to try to introduce my kids to as many different styles of movies as I could, but obviously in an age appropriate way. And I think if you wanted to introduce your kids to horror tropes, this would be a great way to do it. And some of the Leica films, I think, as well. But I think this would be it's a really sweet movie in its core about this relationship between this boy and his dog. And but it has all of sort of the elements of sort of creepy old monster movies, and it's making this Frankenweenie and all the side characters. And I think it's great. I really like it. Have you ever seen this?
I actually did a review of it 2 years ago for my Halloween series.
Oh, nice.
And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Tim Burton is very hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
For everything that he is involved with, like The Nightmare Before Christmas, which he produced, not directed.
Right.
And his 2 Batman movies, there is an Alice in Wonderland or something like that where it's such a big miss that I'm like, was he even a hit to begin with?
Especially, I feel like in the last 20 years, I feel like he was much better when he had to work harder and he had to use more practical effects. And just, I don't know, there's something about the digital age of Burton that has just fallen so flat. Flat to me.
Looking at the cast of Frankenweenie, it's like you got Catherine O'Hara, who is a Burton veteran. She's been in stuff like Beetlejuice, and of course she was the mom in Home Alone.
Right.
And then you have Martin Short, again, another Burton veteran. Martin Landau, who had a legendary career.
And Ed Wood.
As I most know him as the heavy in North by Northwest, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. But of course, he's had tons of other movies besides that. But I always appreciated this movie because it felt kind of retro in the best way possible.
Mhm.
It was stop motion and it was in black and white. And when everyone was like, I want the latest cameras, the latest techniques, Burton took it all the way back to like the stop motion of the 80s and 90s and took it to black and white of like
Yeah.
the early 30s where monster movies were everywhere, like Frankenstein and
Yeah.
Dracula and the Universal stuff. This was, I feel like Frankenweenie is a love letter to all of that monster movie stuff that took place from like the early 30s into the mid to late 40s.
Yeah, I agree. And also, it's not going to be too scary, I don't think, for kids, because at the end of the day, it's a sweet story about a boy and his dog and how much he loves his dog. So I don't know. I think with a little preparation, I think most kids will be fine with this
I agree.
movie. Yeah.
And like you said, this is like the perfect vehicle for kids to get into that type of stuff and then watch the Leica stuff and be scared
Yeah.
to
Like, I
tears.
think the Leica stuff is a lot scarier.
Like, have you seen Coraline? Good
Yes,
Lord.
I have, and I love it. But yeah, it's definitely scarier. And so is Paranorman, which I think came out the same year as Frankenweenie.
Yes, it did actually.
Yeah, and so I feel like Paranorman it's brilliant. I absolutely love it, but I think that it's more for teenagers, older kids. Even the humor, I feel like, is more older kids oriented, whereas I think Frankenweenie is more for smaller, is more appropriate for smaller kids. So I don't know. So all right, what is your next pick?
So my next pick, we're going from black and white animation to a story about a football player. We're talking about Invincible from
Ah,
2006. This starred Mark Wahlberg, Greg Kinnear, and a bunch of others, and it tells the true story of Vince Papale, a part-time substitute teacher and bartender who, in the mid 70s, took part in an open tryout for his home football team, the Philadelphia Eagles. He plays primarily like in a sandlot, so in terms of football stuff, he is by no means a Tom Brady, but he goes to the open tryouts basically to shut his friends up, and he ends up on the team. And the movie documents his time in training camp, the preseason struggles, and then his inaugural game against the Giants, where he would end up capturing a game-winning fumble and winning the game for the Eagles. Uh, this movie is very inspiring to me. It's got a great scene where uh, where Mark Wahlberg is running in the streets, like similar to Rocky, and he just realizes that he lives in like the roughest, toughest part of Philadelphia where no one leaves, and it reminded me a lot of Good Will Hunting, where it's like these people are going to be at this level forever, and if Will Hunting doesn't take that ticket out of there, then he's going to be stuck there, and it would just be a waste. But to put the period at the end of the sentence, Invincible is great. It's got Greg Kinnear in it, who's normally great in most of the things that he is in. It's got a lot of great football scenes. This was directed by a gentleman named Erickson Core, and I'm not sure what else he has directed after this, but this movie is still really inspiring, and
yeah.
so
I've heard about that. I actually have not seen it. So you've definitely inspired me to see, because I love the Disney sports movies, but somehow this one fell through the cracks. But I've heard good things, that it's a really good inspirational movie. It sounds almost like that the Rookie, the Dennis Quaid, um,
actually it has a lot of similar story
baseball.
beats to that of The Rookie. I was
Yeah.
actually contemplating, like, should I put The Rookie or should I put Invincible? I like both,
Hmm.
but Invincible I have seen by far more times.
Mm. The Rookie's a good movie. It's a little slow for me. I feel like it could be trimmed down a little bit, but I like it. So maybe we can save that for next time.
Right. It starred Dennis Quaid and the little boy who would be in Two and a Half Men. I can't remember his name right
Oh
now.
yeah, I
Angus
he
something.
he's in the Kid, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. Disney's The
That's
Kid.
right, you did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, very good. So my next choice is a movie called The Journey of Natty Gann, which came out in 1985. So it's a little 80s live action Disney film. It's set in the 1930s. It's about a girl named Natty Gann, obviously, and her dad leaves, and he's going to be work in the timber industry, and so he has to. He leaves, and he leaves her with this woman who's just the worst and terrible, and treats her terribly. And so she decides that she's going to go and try to find her dad. And so she's sort of riding the rails, and she becomes friends with this dog that's really a wolf dog. And she also becomes friends with a young John Cusack. uh, and Natty is played by Meredith Salinger, who is now married to comic Patton Oswalt, which is random.
Oh wow.
I know. And I actually reviewed it for Family Movie Night, and she retweeted my tweet, which was very exciting. It's like, oh, she liked my review, or maybe liked it. I don't know.
Congratulations, Rachel. You're Twitter famous.
I guess, yeah. But that was fun. And it's a really cool little adventure movie. It does have some pretty tense parts and some but it's an epic adventure kind of story, and I think people will like it and families will like it. And she goes on a lot of different things to try to find her dad. And so it's beautifully made, and good performances, and so I think people will like it.
I'm looking at the cast list now, and I found out that Scatman Crothers is also in it, who was Dick Halloran from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
And
like ice cream, Doc?
Lainey Kazan is the terrible woman. She's the mom in Big Fat Greek Wedding, and so it's quite a different role for her in this.
Wait, who is she in My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
She's the mom in
Oh,
Greek
I was
Wedding.
thinking to myself, the only scene I remember from that movie is the one where the mom and the daughter have this really intimate moment. I can't
Uh,
remember if that's near the third act, but I
oh,
think it in my head. I'm like, that woman be mean?
I
No,
know.
that doesn't compute.
I mean, I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but yeah, I it is quite a different role here. She's very very mean and very abusive, and enough that she runs away and starts going on this adventure. And what I like to, I guess, a spoiler alert, but there's not really any romance between John Cusack's character and Meredith Salinger's character. They're just they're just friends, which I kind of appreciated. I feel like
Yeah,
now they
that's
would make
nice.
a yeah, now they would make it this romance, and so that was good. And so definitely I think it's worth checking out if you have a chance. So what do you have next?
So my next choice is from 2005, and it is Around the World in 80 Days. This
Ah,
the adaptation of the classic book written by Jules Verne, which I read as a kid and I absolutely loved. And I was the perfect age to watch this movie. And
uh-huh.
so when it came out, I loved it, and I've seen it several times since it came out, and I have loved it each time. This is very much an exaggerated version of the tale, but when you have a movie with Steve Coogan and Jackie Chan in it, it kind of calls for something like that. Jackie Chan is in it, and of course he has many great fights, and the stunt choreography is incredible, as par for the course for any Jackie Chan movie. It's got a lot of cool practical effects. There's this one vehicle where Professor Fogg is driving toward the train station to start his journey, and it's like this big, like Dr. Seuss looking contraption thing. It's like this pipes and wires coming out from everywhere, and that looked to me like a practical effect, and I was just blown away by it. I can safely say that this is not an adaptation like you would see like with Journey to the Center of the Earth from the 50s, where it's played totally straight with
Uh-huh.
some big special effects, but it's still a fun movie regardless.
Cool. I actually have never seen this one either. A lot of really good recommendations this week. But I love Jackie Chan. I think he's so great and so charismatic and fun. We actually just for the Criterion project that I do once a month, we reviewed his movie A Police Story, which was one of his early films in China. And he's just so charismatic, and the stunts that he pulls off are incredible. And so it's good to hear that continues on with this film.
He's so likable. You could think
Yeah.
to yourself, no, there's no way he could kick my butt 3 ways to Sunday. But
Yeah.
sure enough, he can.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. That's good. Would you say it's kind of steampunky?
Yes, I didn't know how I could describe it in that regard, but yes,
Uh-huh.
I can safely say it's very steampunk now that I
Ah,
think about it.
cool. Good. All right. Well, my next choice, it's definitely debatable whether this is a hidden gem or not. Because if you grew up when I grew up, everyone knew about it. But I feel like for youngins like yourself, you might not be as familiar with it. Uh, and it's the show called Boy Meets World. Are you familiar with Boy Meets World?
I know of some of the characters. I believe there was a principal. I'm sorry, I'm
Mr.
probably
Feeney. Yes.
yes, Mr. Feeney, and that's probably the most I know about it.
Yeah. So,
I know more about Freaks and Geeks than I do
uh,
about Boy Meets World. I've seen neither, but I know more about the former than the
yeah.
latter.
Unfortunately, Freaks and Geeks is not on Disney Plus, but never know, I guess. But Boy Meets World is a show that I loved growing up. The whole cast was basically the same age as me. So like when they started high school, I started high school. When they went to college, I went to college, and so I don't know. I feel like I kind of grew up with them. And yeah, Mr. Feeney was he started out as the teacher and then was the principal. Whenever they had to transition to a new school, he would all of a sudden magically get a new job to go with them. And he was also, Mr. Feeney was also the lead character. Corey, he is their neighbor, so there was also sort of involvement there. And there's a romance from the very beginning between Corey and his friend Topanga, is her name. She's kind of like a free spirit kind of character, and he's more sort of tense and wound up and everything. And they're so cute. And his best friend is named Sean, and Sean comes from a tough background, poor background. He's abandoned a lot. He's not really very loved, and so you get some really interesting storylines with that. And the friendship between Sean and Corey is the best, and I just love it. The show took on a lot of tougher subjects and tougher themes, but did it in a really authentic way. And it also, in my opinion, has one of the best finales ever. It's exactly what you want from the end of a show, with Do Well. This whole scene between them and Mr. Feeney, so good. And everybody just had really good chemistry, and it's for the most part genuinely funny. And if you like something like the Goldbergs, then you'll probably like Boy Meets World. It doesn't have as much nostalgia as the Goldbergs as far as all the movie stuff and things, but but it's just as far as like the family dynamic and also the kind of growing up dynamic, it's does that really well. And it was, it's the same time to get something like Full House, which is cute enough and I enjoy, but to me Boy Meets World is far better written and more authentic to the experience of growing up. And they did a Girl Meets World, which is also on Disney Plus, which I also loved, but they cut it. I think it was only 3 seasons, which seemed like a shame. But yeah, I love Boy Meets World. It's definitely one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah,
So,
I'm listening to you talk about it, and it's like it sounds like something that I would like, because
yeah,
I like TV from the 90s.
yeah,
I grew up watching old reruns of Home Improvement. I'm not sure if you're a Home
yeah,
Improvement fan, but I loved Home Improvement, and
yeah.
I didn't even like watch it in its original run. One of my favorite shows of all time, The King of Queens, started in '99, so technically it's not a
Mm-hmm.
90s, but it started there.
Wow.
It's a gray area, but I actually found this YouTube channel where this person has uploaded old commercials from the 80s and 90s,
Uh-huh.
and like Charlie Day in that post, in that meme where he's like trying to connect the dots. I'm trying to find like where the commercials would go for various programs, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
if my it's my dream. It's a dream of mine to find like old commercials and tie them in with like with like stuff I'm watching like on a streaming service. Like
Right.
there's this website that uploaded all of the TV listings for TNT's Monster Vision, and
Uh-huh.
one of the first one is like for this night where they did The Outer Limits, the original show, and they have like the commercial bumpers and everything. But I'm trying to track down the old commercials, and it's like I can't find a site where they say on this day these commercials aired. And like I
Uh-huh.
even used Wayback Machine, and they couldn't even tell me.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Because if I sometimes I'll look and watch the old Siskel and Ebert episodes that you can find on YouTube, and they have the ads sometimes in there, and it's just like a little time capsule.
Yeah, it absolutely. My one problem with those old episodes is that they're definitely captured on like a VCR, because I can
Yeah,
see like the track lines going through Roger's eyes
yeah.
sometimes. I'm like, uh, I'm trying to hear him talk about the McDonald's in Amsterdam. I don't need to see track lines in there, please.
Yes, no, that's definitely true. But it's still fun nevertheless. And I don't know, I just think that Boy Meets World, it has all those fun elements like you're talking about with 90s television, like I said, with Full House or with a lot of these kind of iconic shows of that era. But I think that it has better writing in general and just more uh I don't know, it takes on loftier themes. It really feels like you grow up with these characters, or at least certainly feels like I did. So I think people should definitely check it out.
Kind of feels like I don't know if these are the same like genre, but I grew up watching old reruns also of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know if
Yeah,
they're like the same thing,
they
but
are kind of similar. I mean, that I would say that one's more. I mean, it's more for teenagers. I mean, that does happen later on in Boy Meets World, and it's. I would say that maybe Fresh Prince is like just a hair more silly in certain things, but it can have some pretty emotional episodes as well. So I'd say they're pretty close. They have a similar kind of dynamic, except
Mr.
for Boy
Feely
Meets
doesn't
World.
throw anyone out the front door, does he?
No, Boy Meets World starts when they're younger than whereas Fresh Prince, he's in high school, I think, from the beginning. I would say that
Wow.
maybe Fresh Prince is maybe more comparable to Saved by the Bell, maybe, but I don't
I
know.
was going to say, thinking about it, yeah, that seems more of an apt
I
comparison.
mean, it's a lot better than Saved by the Bell, but nevertheless, but yeah, I kind of miss those kind of shows. I feel like we don't get them that often anymore, that they're usually shows are more sort of gritty, and we don't really have a lot of those sort of innocent sitcoms that for the family that we used
We
to.
need to write more cynicism.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, I guess there are shows on Disney Channel. And then there's some shows like the Goldbergs, like I said. I think that's the most similar kind of show I can think of to something like Boy Meets World that we have now. So, but very good. What do you have next?
So for my final choice, it is a movie from 2006. It is called Eight Below.
Mm-hmm.
This stars Paul Walker. May he rest in peace. And it tells the story of a man who works in Antarctica, and he has a sled dog team who he has to leave behind because the winter storms there are so fierce that no real humans can stay there. And it's all about his fight to get back and save his dogs. However, the dogs, in a way, kind of save themselves, and it's really really solid stuff. This movie was directed by Frank Marshall, who is more known as a producer including movies such as the Indiana Jones movies, the Back to the Future movies. I'm sure you've heard of those.
Yeah.
And 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 his only real directing credit is this one. And I honestly think that he did a really good job with this one. Paul Walker is, of course, really good. I really feel bad for Paul Walker because he's primarily known as, he's the other half of the Fast and the Furious movies. But whenever he was put in something other than the Fast and the Furious movies, I always enjoyed him. I don't think he was Orson Welles or anything, but I thought he was charismatic. He was really funny sometimes, and it seemed like he was always happy to be wherever he was, but not in the grating way I made that sound.
Yeah.
He has the movie's best line where he's like pleading to try and go back, and he's like, "Those dogs are my family. I can't just leave them there." Like, you feel the pain in his voice. Like, it's such a good performance. But anyway, to put the period at the end of the sentence on this one, Eight Below is a really good movie. It's a really good dog movie as well. If you're a fan of dogs, specifically huskies, this will definitely be for you.
Yeah, I reviewed this for Family Movie Night, and I agree. I think this is a great pick for a hidden gem because I kind of had grouped it with for some reason I had grouped it with the Cuba Gooding Jr. Snow Dogs movie, which is way not as good. And this
is totally different.
Yeah, and totally different. Like, this is a pretty serious movie. It's tense. It's him trying to, save these dogs, and a lot of things stopping along the way and stopping him. And so I don't know. It's different than I thought it was going to be going into it. And I think I decided to review it for Family Movie Night just because we'd had like a bunch of snow days or something like that. And so I was like, I'll watch this. And I was like, wow, that was way better than I expected it to be. And I agree, Paul Walker's good in it. And he fights for a long time, and it's amazing those dogs are able to save them, are still alive, and that they can find them.
And it's done in a realistic way. They're not portrayed as superheroes. They're real dogs, but they're huskies, and they're like, okay, we're trained. This is what we've been made for. We gotta make it out of this. And there's a lot of tough moments. I won't go into spoilers, but there's a lot of tough moments. But
that's very, very true.
But when the inevitable reunion happens, it's like, yes, they reunited finally.
Yes, yeah, and it's very emotional. I mean, it is definitely a very underrated film, and people should definitely watch it. I think it's a really good pick. All right, so my last pick is Muppet Treasure Island, and I think that the Muppets have been at their best when they are based on a classic literature. And they've only done it twice, and I wish they would do it more, because they've done this, and then they did Muppets Christmas Carol, which of course is beloved. Muppets Christmas Carol. And I don't think this is as good as a Muppets Christmas Carol, but I think it's pretty fun. I mean, I especially love Tim Curry as Long John Silver's. He's so good. I mean, he's so great at that sort of hammy villain. Like
Tim Curry was taken from us far too soon. Like I love Tim Curry to death. That he was the butler in Clue. He was the maitre d' in Home Alone 2. Just like he was in so much good stuff. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Rachel. I didn't mean.
No. I think that Tim Curry is still alive, but I think I think he's sick. I think that he isn't well, but I'm pretty sure he isn't. I could be wrong.
Well, that's just super awkward. But Tim, if you're somehow listening to this, I do love you, and
yes, he's still living.
Oh, he is. Well, now it's super awkward. If Tim somehow comes across this, I want him to know that I love him and he's awesome.
Yeah. No, he's great, and he's so good at this kind of dastardly villain, just sort of over the top and funny, and
he has experience playing the pirate. He was in the Fox show Peter Pan and the Pirates.
Oh yeah,
he was Captain Hook.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of wish that he had been in Steven Spielberg's Hook. I think he would have made that movie better. But I love him in this, and he's just fun with the other Muppets, and Kermit is the captain, and you can't go wrong with that. And it has some nice little songs and some funny jokes, and you got your classic Treasure Island story told in there, and so I enjoy it, and I love the Muppets for the most part. There's a couple that aren't as good, but for the most part, I love the Muppets, and I think this one's a really fun, underrated entry in the franchise.
Yeah, I've seen Muppets Christmas Carol a ton of times. Like Michael Caine is awesome in that movie, and it's got a pretty sinister song in there. The "We're Marley and Marley" song. And I'm like, this is surprisingly disturbing. But I've never seen Muppet Treasure Island, but now hearing you talk about it, especially since I'll probably be getting some threatening mail from Mr. Curry. I'll definitely check this out, maybe just to sate the wrath of the Curry.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We should check it out. So let's go over our list real quick. So I have The Straight Story, and then Frankenweenie, The Journey of Natty Gann, Boy Meets World, and Muppet Treasure Island. So that's some good viewing. If you watched all of that, you'd be really set. So what about you?
So my list is Atlantis, the Lost Empire, America's Heart and Soul, Invincible, Around the World in 80 Days, and 8 Below.
Great. Well, very good. So, Ryan, where can people find you, and what do you have coming up on your channel?
So you can find me on social media at RyanCam20. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. I am updating my Letterboxd either every day or every other day. So I'm very active on there. Mm-hmm. And then my YouTube channel is RyanCam Movie Reviews. Just type it in there. It'll take you straight to the channel. I've got a new series up called the AFI Project that I will be uploading a few new episodes of. I'll be talking about Singing in the Rain and a bunch of other classics. And then I'll be uploading my Twilight Zone vlogs where I discuss the Twilight Zone in depth. And then I'll also be uploading my series called I Finally Saw, where I talk about famous movies that I'm watching for the first time. And I believe the next couple is going to be Michael Mann's Collateral and Matt Reeves's Cloverfield. And I've got a stack of other ones that I've definitely got to watch and review for that segment. So that segment's going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and at the Hallmarkies podcast. So check all of that out. I think you'll really enjoy it. And thanks again for doing this. And again, let us know what your hidden gems are, and we'll talk about them next week on the podcast, and maybe we'll even review some of them. So that would be really fun. So thanks so much.
No matter how obscure.
Yes, more obscure the better. It's hidden gems. So
Indeed.
Please let us know, and please subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up if you're listening on iTunes. Please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that so much. And we have our Patreon group, which is really fun and means so much to us. And then we also have a merch store, which has really fun designs. So check all of that out. And thanks again, and we'll talk next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.